Internal Revenue Service IRS Tax News. IRS Office of Chief Counsel's first national virtual settlement month successful in resolving almost 150 tax court cases. IR 2021-93, April 26, 2021, Washington. Building on the success of settlement days and virtual settlement days, the Internal Revenue Service of Chief Counsel hosted its first national virtual settlement month in March 2021. The results are impressive. So, of course, the results here for the IRS, once again, spectacular, according to the IRS. Settlement Days events are coordinated efforts to resolve cases in the United States Tax Court by providing taxpayers who are not represented by counsel the opportunity to resolve free tax advice from Low Income Taxpayer Clinics, the LITCs, American Bar Association, the ABA volunteer attorneys, and other pro bono organizations. So that does sound nice. We have, quote, the March Settlement Days campaign Internal Revenue Service IRS Tax News. IRS Office of Chief Counsel's first national virtual settlement month successful in resolving almost 150 tax court cases. IR 2021-93, April 26, 2021, Washington. Building on the success of settlement days and virtual settlement days, the Internal Revenue Service Office of Chief Counsel hosted its first national virtual settlement month in March 2021. The results are impressive. So, of course, once again, the IRS has done something spectacular, according to the IRS. Settlement Days events are coordinated efforts to resolve cases in the United States Tax Court by providing taxpayers who are not represented by counsel the opportunity to receive free tax advice from Low Income Taxpayer Clinics, the LITCs, American Bar Association, ABA volunteer attorneys, and other pro bono organization. Which does sound nice, and if you have the opportunity to do that, might be a good idea. So, quote, the March Settlement Days campaign yielded great results with well over half of participating taxpayers settling their cases on a basis agreeable to them without having to represent themselves in tax court, end quote, said IRS Commissioner Chuck Rettig. So obviously, once again, in a situation where the IRS has a contested situation with a taxpayer, they're saying possibly you owe taxes due to this, that, or the other situation. The taxpayer may then argue against that, of course, and they may need some advice in order to do that. They may need advice in order to lower the penalties and interest and possibly have some representation from something like an attorney or others that can represent them to the IRS for them, basically as an agent. Obviously, that can be expensive in situations where it would be necessary. So this is one way that you can possibly get access. They're providing possibly access to the kind of representation that would be useful to give advice to help settle court cases with the IRS. So, quote, these strong results could not be achieved without the dedication and support of our partner groups, the LITCs, ABA, and other pro bono organizations, end quote. Obviously, this is also something that the IRS would like to promote themselves on as one of their main events and an event, right? So they obviously probably have an incentive as well to try to settle court cases within this framework as well. So if you have access to this type of thing, it might be worthwhile to get access to professionals, get access to, representation or advice at least possibly. And again, there looks like they have an incentive to try to close cases on this thing. So it might, therefore, you might have a little bit of leeway possibly to get a favorable outcome in terms of closing out or settling cases for that reason as well. So it could be a good thing to look into if you have the opportunity and if you're in the situation where you need help to settle court cases with the IRS. So during the Office of Chief Counsel's National Virtual Settlement Month, there's a link to that here. Virtual Settlement Days events were held in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Many were held in cities that had not recently hosted a Settlement Days event. Nearly 240 taxpayers met with Chief Counsel employees and pro bono organizations, leading to settlements in 148 tax court cases. those taxpayers whose cases were not resolved had the opportunity to obtain free legal advice and better understand their cases and the process of litigating in the tax court. LITC representatives and ABA volunteer attorneys provided free legal advice, assisting taxpayers outside their regular service areas as needed. At many events, taxpayers were also able to discuss payment options with IRS collection employees. Taxpayers were also able to consult taxpayer advocate service employees about unrelated tax matters not before the tax court. Quote, unrepresented taxpayers with cases in tax court should strongly consider seeking assistance at a settlement day event when given the chance. It provides taxpayers a fair way to resolve their cases on a basis they agree with rather than taking their chances in court, end quote, Rettig said. So they're basically saying, it looks here like they're trying to provide another avenue for people to look for the settlement avenue. Obviously, if you take something to the tax court, which you typically you have the right to do if you have an argument with the position that the IRS is taking and whatnot, then you can take it to the tax court. If that happens, then typically you would want normally to get some type of representation, possibly from attorney or other representative, a CPA and somewhat, or something like that. It might be easier to then to go to one of these options here, or at least check them out. And like I say, they could have an incentive possibly to both provide the advice, and some people, doing volunteer work, you want to make sure that you're picking someone out that has some specialization or expertise in the area you're in, hopefully, but you might be able to get some advice in that. And again, it looks to me like they want these things to work, right? So they might have some leeway to try to close cases at that point in time, which could be useful as well to save time and possibly get a good outcome. So virtual settlement days, there's a link to that here. Events were first announced in May 2020 to continue the benefits of settlement days during the pandemic. Before March 2021, more than 260 taxpayers resolved their tax court cases during a virtual settlement day event, avoiding the need for over 260 trials. The Office of Chief Counsel's plan to continue virtual settlement days events together with face-to-face options when circumstances permit. In the meantime, taxpayers with cases before the tax court are encouraged to contact the assigned chief counsel attorney or paralegal to inquire about participating in a virtual settlement days event. So you might want to ask about it, whoever you're in contact with the IRS, and say, hey, is there an event coming up near me? Can I get involved in that? If it's a virtual event, maybe you can get in, possibly you should be able to get into that possibly, and that could be a good way to get at least some benefit from that. It is possible they can achieve same-day resolution of their case on a basis they agree with.